Jesus went throughout all of Galilee, teaching in their synagogues, preaching the gospel of the kingdom and healing every kind of disease and sickness among the people. When he saw the crowds, he went up to the mountain. After he sat down, his disciples came to him. Then he began to teach them by saying, "Blessed are the poor in spirit, for the kingdom of heaven belongs to them. Blessed are those who mourn, for they will be comforted. Blessed are the meek, for they will inherit the earth. Blessed are those who hunger and thirst for righteousness, for they will be satisfied. Blessed are the merciful, for they will be shown mercy. Blessed are the pure in heart, for they will see God. Blessed are the peacemakers, for they will be called the children of God. Blessed are those who are persecuted for righteousness, for the kingdom of heaven belongs to them." Blessed are you when people insult you and persecute you and say all kinds of evil things about you falsely on account of me. Rejoice and be glad, because your reward is great in heaven, for they persecuted the prophets before you in the same way. Gosh, we wouldn't have wanted to miss that final blessing. Thanks, Denise.
All right. I think I might have mentioned once before, maybe sometime last year, that I did a self-defence course many years ago. It was this whole 3-day thing, and I think it was one of the most powerful experiences of my life. One of the things that I learnt, oh, thank you, I'm going to need that. One of the things that I learnt that's been really influential for my life ever since is that there are more than 2 options when it comes to self-defence. There's attack and there's retreat, and attacking is moving forward towards someone to kind of take the offensive, right? And retreating is moving back, running away or withdrawing. And they both have their uses in self-defence. But there's a third option, and that is to stay where you are. To just stay, to just plant your feet on the ground and don't move forward to attack or backwards to retreat. You sort of put your hands up to set a boundary, but open hands, which kind of says, it's okay, I'm not a threat to you, but I'm not intimidated either. Which brings me to the day that my son Josh married the lovely Hannah in a small town in Texas. It was a beautiful day. We'd all been a bit worried that it was going to be crazy hot. We were looking at the weather report. But the day dawned and it was just lovely. There was a blue sky, a warm breeze, and the day went off pretty much without a hitch. Except that Hannah completely forgot to put her veil on, and nobody realised until the photos. But apart from that, it really went without a hitch. It was just a delightful day. 7th of October, 2023. What we didn't know, because none of us thought to check the news that day, was that on the other side of the world, a horrific event was unfolding. Armed militants used motorcycles, trucks and powered paragliders to break through the borders of the Gaza Strip. They surrounded the grounds of a music festival and indiscriminately fired on individuals attempting to escape. People sought refuge in bomb shelters, bushes, orchards. Most were killed while hiding. The militants executed some wounded individuals at point-blank range as they crouched on the ground. 364 people were killed. 40 hostages were taken. Other scenes were unfolding elsewhere. In all, 21 Israeli communities were attacked. Almost 12,000 people were killed. 250 people were taken hostage, including 30 children. And we all know what happened next. Israel launched an intensive bombing campaign and invaded Gaza on the 27th of October, with the stated objectives of destroying Hamas and freeing the hostages. Since the start of the Israeli offensive, over 48,000 Palestinians in Gaza have been reported as killed, making this the deadliest war in this history's conflict, in the conflict's history. By early 2025, Israel had caused unprecedented destruction in Gaza. Large parts of Gaza are now currently uninhabitable. Entire cities have been levelled. The healthcare system has been destroyed, along with agricultural land, religious and cultural landmarks, educational facilities and cemeteries. Nearly all of the Strip's 2.3 million Palestinian people have been forcibly displaced. As of February 2024, over 100,000 Israelis had also found themselves displaced and unable to live in their former homes because their homes were in a buffer zone around Gaza. Currently, there's a ceasefire in Gaza. It's very shaky. It could fail any day. Unfortunately, the war in Gaza has sparked an increase in violence in the West Bank, where Israeli settlers continue to build settlements on Palestinian land, a practice that the UN says is a violation of international law, and Israel says is not. The history of how Israelis and Palestinians ended up in this conflict, this horrific conflict, is just complex and long and involves the politics not just of those two people groups, but the politics of many other groups and nations, clashes of world views, different interpretations of events. And I've tried to understand it all many times, and I've failed. As an outsider to the situation, I don't believe that I can ever claim to understand the complexities of this whole situation with any credibility. And what it is like to live in the midst of all of this horrific chaos and violence, that's not something that I can understand. I can read about it, I can watch video footage, but I can't understand what it's like to live in that troubled region through the last 505 days since Josh and Hannah got married under that sunny blue sky. Dayoud Nasser does know what it's like. He and his family are Palestinians who live on 100 acres of farmland on the West Bank, quite close to Bethlehem. Dayoud's grandfather bought the land in 1916 when the land was under the rule of the Ottoman Empire. Seems like a long, long time ago. It used to be surrounded by open countryside, but now it's surrounded by 5 Israeli settlements. The Israeli government offered to buy the land, but the Nasser family do not wish to sell. They want to stay. Fearful that their land will be declared state land, they've been in a 33-year-long court battle with the Israeli government over their right to keep and cultivate the land. In 2021, an orchard that they planted with olive trees was destroyed by bulldozers sent in by Israeli troops. 6 months later, vandals, unknown, destroyed more trees. 2 of the Nasser brothers were beat up by masked men who entered their property. Over the years, their water, electricity and road access has been cut off. With donations, the family have installed solar panels and built water cisterns. Visiting the farm now requires parking a long way down the road and then scrambling over the concrete blocks that are put there to block the road access. Painted on a stone at the entrance to the farm is a phrase: "We refuse to be enemies." Dayoud and his family are Palestinian Christians. For many generations, they've held strongly to the teachings of Jesus. They believe that the light shines in the darkness and the darkness has never put it out. They believe that there are more options than to attack or to retreat. They believe that there's a third option, staying, holding their ground and refusing to be enemies of anyone. David tells his visitors, we refuse to hate because people are created in the image of God. We're not created to hate each other. We are asking you not to be on one side only, but to be on the side of peace and justice, which is for everyone. The Nassau's land has become a centre for peace building, as well as an environmentally sustainable farm. Summer camps are run there for Palestinian children from local refugee camps in Bethlehem. The Nassau family's goal is to teach children non-violent resistance. They're teaching children to refuse to hate. They do this for the simple reason that they believe without faith, without hope, without love, nothing can be done here. Do you know, some people say that Christianity is a crutch. It's something to console yourself with when life goes pear-shaped. It's for people who are weak, who can't face the difficulties of life without a crutch. Well, you know, if you've got a broken leg, a crutch is kind of a helpful thing to have. We all need something to lean on. But that's not what I'm seeing in this circumstance. Weakness is not what I'm seeing painted on this stone. Jesus' teaching is not a crutch to lean on to make life easier. This is not for the faint-hearted. It is hard. It's hard to do, and it's hardest to do when you need to do it most. I can't imagine returning to my home to discover it in ruins, knowing that there are people that I knew and loved who were buried under that rubble. I can't imagine having my child who was brutally taken hostage returned in a box. I can't imagine being in those situations and saying, I refuse to be your enemy. How does anyone do that? In those situations, how do you not give in to hate? It's something that I can't understand. I don't know that I could do what Daoud Nassar and his family does. And yet, I also know that refusing to be an enemy is the only hope that this world has. Violence begets violence. And violence, as we've seen, tends to just spiral out of control. So faith in Jesus, far from being a crutch for the weak, is a choice to risk everything, to believe that with God's help, I can walk a different path. To believe in Jesus is to decide to walk a different path. This big year stuff, loving your neighbour, being humble, holding your possessions loosely, reforming yourself, not others, following the Spirit, being hospitable, loving your enemies, trusting God, forgiving, being faithful, giving freely. All of these big year themes that we're going to be looking at. Are any of them easy? I don't think so. And yet, these are the things that will change the world. They have more power to change things than military solutions, more powerful than economic sanctions, more powerful than drawing and redrawing boundaries, borders endlessly, and they're so much more powerful than violence and retaliation. These are the things, they're the way to become truly human. This is how the kingdom of God comes near. Your will be done on earth as it is in heaven. There's a marriage of heaven and earth happening on Daoud Nassar's farm every time someone refuses to be an enemy. Christians don't have a monopoly on these teachings. You don't have to subscribe to a Christian belief system to follow these teachings. Anyone can follow the way of Jesus. Muslim, Jews, Christians alike. Anyone can refuse to be an enemy. Not many of us here are dealing with the fallout of a war. We don't live in Gaza, Israel, Ukraine, Russia, or any number of places where upheaval is just an everyday fact of life. But we've got our own challenges. You've got your own challenges. There's enough going on in our backyards for life to feel very unsettled. There's enough going on, I think, to challenge our walk with Jesus, to challenge our resolve to walk a different path, isn't there? The Palestinian-Israeli conflict impacts people living in Australia. We've seen that. We've seen some really concerning incidents, particularly in our southern states lately. There's an Aussie election coming up, and politics can get very nasty. People can hold strong views, different views. Can we hold different views at the same time as refusing to be enemies? Transgender healthcare has been in the spotlight with a Queensland and a federal review to the current guidelines coming up, and that's causing ripples of fear and concern for our trans siblings through our community. Can we channel that fear into positive action? And just a shout out to Deb May and Sam's crafternoon yesterday. That is such a positive thing. We're seeing societal changes. It feels sometimes like the ground is shifting, shifts in how people view the world. We don't know where those shifts are going to land. We've all got things going on in our own lives as well. Difficult choices to make. People in our lives who don't feel like they're in our corner. Responsibilities that we feel overwhelmed by. And if you follow the news, and you're watching all of these events and situations unfold, you can just live in this perpetual state of outrage, whiplash, partly because there's so much to be outraged about, and partly because, outrage sells a lot of news and people know how to create it. We might want to attack. We might want to denigrate our opponents, our enemies. We might want to trample them and shout them down. Or we might want to just retreat, withdraw, like get the hell away. Despair of anything changing. Lock ourselves in a room with our fingers in our ears and just let the world happen around us. Sometimes we might need to do that for our own sanity. But attack or retreat are not the only options that we have before us. And I look to Daoud Nassar, and I think I could decide not to attack or retreat. We can stand our ground. We can hold fast to the way of Jesus. We can refuse to be an enemy. We can stay where we are and refuse to move. We can stay. We can stay hospitable, we can stay joyful, we can stay faithful, we can stay human. Stay the course with Jesus. Let's do that together.